Hey YouTube, how you guys doing tonight? Kevin here, coming at you with another video. So I got the exhaust on the gt80. So we pulled some parts off the other bike, and well, I was going to do a video on all that, but you guys have seen me pull apart bikes over and over and over again. So this kind of cut some of the chase out of that, you know, the repetitiveness. So anyway, working on the bike, and got the air filter assembly on, which you guys saw me do on the yellow bike, which is the same as this bike. So we got the carburetor, the air filter assembly on there. This is a spare carburetor you see hanging up here. And if you guys have the option of having a spare carburetor, it helps. But if you don't, no biggie. I'm going to show you guys how to do this. So what I'm doing tonight is I'm setting up the oiler. I'm timing the oiler and the carburetor together. So anyway, before I go any further, guys, please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. I'm going to get you guys in the stand, and we'll get crack-a-lackin'. Okay, so this is actually going to cover a lot of these Yamaha bikes with this particular style oil pump. Right there. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the timing of it, how to bleed it, and all that type of stuff, and how this particular system works. This particular bike, you guys, if you guys really wanted to, you can, this is the type of bike right here that you can pre-mix. You can bypass the oiler, block off the vacuum port on the intake, and this engine right here is not a rotary valve, and you can bypass the pump. So that's one of those good, cool things. You can just leave the cover on there. So you guys might notice that the cover on this side right here is a little different. That's because it's not from a GT80. That cover right there is from the RX50. So it's that motor up there that we robbed the tachometer drive. So if you guys aren't familiar, I'll get you guys up to speed real quick because I haven't done a video on this bike in a while. So let me get you guys up to speed. This bike is a 1980 Yamaha GT80, and we're going to modify this bike. This bike is going to stay in my collection. If you go back and watch some of my earlier videos, I put the tachometer drive. So it's going to have a tachometer cable right there. You can see the threads. That's going to spin inside there and run a tachometer. A couple of other modifications that I have done to this particular engine is I cut up the GT50 head and have the bottom machined out to fit. You see right there, it's modified. That is a high compression head. So this bike has CDI ignition. It has a RX50 side cover. It has the RX50 cylinder head modified to fit the GT80. It has another cool feature and it's not even up here yet, but if you look up here, there is no neutral light. Yes, there is no neutral light, and I removed the plug. Sorry about the mess in here, guys. I've been working all day in here. But here is the plug right here. And I'm going to move the bike and show you guys what that is before I get you guys in the stand. Okay. So if you look right there where that Phillips screw is right there, that is the neutral safety light. So we have that. We got to test it and make sure it works. Because don't forget, this motor right here never had that. This is the actual GT80 motor that came on this bike. So we're gonna have to test that real quick and see if we got a signal when we shift it out of gear. And this is the bike that's going to get an instrument cluster. Show you guys what that looks like. Right there. So this is the cluster that's going on this bike. And you can see it's relatively close. 80 miles per hour. That one does the same. And it has all the same lights, just that this is going to be modified to fit this particular bike. So, and then this bike right here will go in my collection. That gauge set right there is from the RX50 Yamaha. So, without further ado, let me get you guys in the stand and we'll start doing the oil pump, and then we're going to talk about the neutral safety light. Just like on the Kawasaki's that you guys have seen in there, there is a timing that has to take place. And the reason for this, okay, is we have two cables going into one cable. We have the throttle cable and we have the oil cable, and it goes into this here junction box right here, the two cables, and then into one which is up to your throttle handlebars. Okay? What we need to do is when this thing is at idle, we need it to be at the mark on the pump. And when we go full throttle, we need that thing to move accordingly. Okay? So that's the purpose of this video, to show you guys how this is. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is grab your carburetor and get that all set up. So let me see if I can get some better light over here. Get this kind of, so you can see the throttle plate inside there. It's all the way down. Now on the side of these Mikuni carburetors, right in the center there, there's a flathead screw. Okay, you're going to want to back that out. Back it out until it's loose as a goose. And that right there would mean that your throttle plate is all the way down. With the throttle plate all the way down, okay, you're going to want to push the cables in. Make sure they're all in. Okay, push them all in and make sure they're not yanked, pulled, or twisted on anything. Okay, verify that it is closed. Then you're going to go down to your oil pump. So let's get you guys down to the oil pump. Hold on a second, shrink you guys down here on the tripod. Excuse me, I'm just going to be a second doing that. Okay. And there we go. Get you guys up like that. Blow you up. Oh, perfect. Okay. Now, okay, see if you guys can see that. Right here, there's a couple of marks. See the big one in the middle? The big long one comes all the way to the end. Okay, that one right there needs to be with this pin. So as long as they're in alignment, I have mine just a smidge on the positive side. So when I give it throttle, it wants to go. So I have it set a little rich right now. So to loosen this up, to bring this back, because it's going to want to come back. So it sits like that. Alright, that's the memory of it. Okay, that right there is where it's going to be idling. And that right there is a little on the high side. When I go full throttle, I verify that my... Where are you? That my carburetor is fully open. Which in this case it is. See if I can get some light on that for you. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. It's kind of... I'm sorry about the camera angles, guys. It's, alright, so right there, the throttle is... Oh, hold on. Making a mess out of this here. Okay. So right there, the throttle is closed. See if I can... Now when I open it, the slide goes all the way to the top, which is what you want. Now, I have a high compression head on this bike. I have, what do you call it there? The bike has high mileage, and the cylinder has a couple of light scoring. Okay, not heavy scoring, light. Very light, moderate scoring. So what I want to do is I'm going to run this a little on the positive side. A little on the positive side so I get a little extra oil. Not much. A smidgen. Okay? And a couple of reasons for that is because it's going to want to run a little cooler with a little bit more oil. And also, too, I'm going to run premium gas in this, like high test, because of the high compression head. If you run regular in this with a high compression head, it's going to ping. So you don't want that to happen. Next step. I already got oil through the line, but I'm going to explain to you guys how to do all that. Okay? So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fill up the reservoir on the other side. Right there. That's where that fills up. That's my oil sensor. This particular bike has an oil sensor. The other one did not. This one tells you when it's low in oil. But you want to fill up your reservoir. Take your cap off. Just pop it off. Once your cap is off, you're going to want to come over to here. And then right here is your oil bleed screw. You want to make sure you get oil all the way through the line until it comes out here and drips on the ground. Alright? Then, what I do is, I use a vacuum pump. A lot of people don't have vacuum pumps. You can kick the bike over a little bit. But you want to get it so you start getting oil through here. Okay? I like to make sure I got oil all the way up to the intake, so I use a vacuum pump to do that. But because once you get oil out of here, you can close this and then make sure the line is off the intake and just sitting there. I hold it full throttle, kick the engine over a few times, and then I start to see oil coming up through here. Once the oil makes its way up to at least here, in between the oil pump and the carburetor, you're good to go. And then I throw a little premix in it, and then that finishes off the prime. So that is how I bleed the oiler system and set it up on this particular bike. There are a few other ways of doing it. Some people pressurize the tank, kind of push it through, and then, move the little plunger up and down. There's all kinds of different ways of doing it. That's the way I particularly do it. Sometimes if I'm having a hard time oiling, I'll show you what I did. Sometimes I make tools. Like for instance, I have a drill here, and this is the driver that drives the oil pump. So I'll put this in the back of it and give it a little spin like that until I get oil coming up out of it. This is just one of those things I have kicking around from another cover. So if you guys are, like me and have extra parts kicking around, this helps. Because this right here goes through the back side of a thing, so you can't pull it off that. So it goes through the back side of the cover, which I'll show you guys real quick. I just took it, I don't know what that was, but I took it off one of these extra covers I had kicking around and was able to use the oil pump driver to prime up the oil pump. So that's how I do that. Just one more technique. But ultimately, to get the oil to it, just undo the bleeder and you'll get it from the tank to the, the pump. If you have the cap off, the oil cap off and then that little plug out and no oil's coming and you're full, you might have a clogged tank. So always check your tank. Make sure you get a good flow coming out of your tank. Very, very important. Alright, so we got that part done. We got oil all the way up to the intake. That is all set up. I got to plug in the carburetor and we got to check that sensor. Alright. Looks kind of weird with that type of cylinder head on there, I'll tell you that. Alright, so here's the spare carburetor right here. I'm just unscrewing the throttle plate. And this carburetor here can go back up in my carburetor box. Nice. And then I'm going to slide that into the carburetor. Okay. Careful the needle. The fuel line. So go this way for now. Okay. You should be able to feel it slide in and out there. This is the carburetor off the yellow bike, so I know it's good carb. Okay. Isn't that tight? Do not crank on this, just give it a little snug so it's the cap is snug. Don't go too crazy with that. And then make sure your cables are not all intertwined with one another. And then the most important part of this whole entire job here, believe it or not, is this. The oil pump cable. Do you guys see that spring that's on it? This spring right here. This spring is on here for a heat shrink. So make sure it comes all the way down and around the muffler, because you don't want to cook your cables. Okay? The intake one is bad enough that's that close. Alright, so now that we get that on there, I'll show you guys what the next part is. Up top, let's see if I can get you guys up a little higher. Sorry for moving you guys around a lot. I'm not having an easy night tonight. Got a screaming headache. Alright. So if you look right here, where this is the holder for your fuel tank. So what you're going to want to do is take your throttle cable, stick it up on top and in back if you can, like so. Rotate this around so everything's smooth. As smooth as possible, guys. Smooth as possible. And this cable over here can actually fit in with those if it wants to. Yeah, like that. Perfect. Okay, so now your throttle is all put where it needs to go. And now we're going to test it.